Well, 18 weeks have come and gone in this school year. It continues to just fly by. So grab a cup of coffee. Let's talk about how quarter 2 went in our homeschool and our plans for quarter 3. Hey guys, and welcome back to my Practically Imperfect Life. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome to my channel. My name's Abby and I'm a homeschooling mom of 2 high schoolers. I have a 9th grader and a 10th grader this year. And here on the channel, I just like to share all things homeschooling and mom life. And if it ever stops being so dreary outside, some gardening stuff as well. But we live in Northeast Indiana, so the winters are just kind of, So I know everyone's been kind of experiencing some crazy weather this holiday season. So hopefully everyone's staying safe and staying warm and dry and, making it through. Spring will come. It will come. Anyways, right before Christmas break, we finished our 18th week of school, which is crazy. Like it just blew by. And I think quarter 2 went by faster than I was anticipating, largely because we had some kind of wonky schedule weeks. We took a family vacation early November. We took the kids down to Universal Studios, which was their first time there. In fact, I think it was my husband's first time there, he said, and I hadn't been in like 20 years. So it was a lot of fun. It definitely kind of strikes me as a theme park that was great for older kids, and I'm glad we waited till they were teenagers to take them. A lot of roller coasters and thrill rides and things like that. And then my daughter totally like fangirled at Spider-Man. She was so excited to see Spider-Man. It was hilarious. So we had a good time with that. We took a half week, the week of Thanksgiving, and we took off half a week before Christmas. So it just kind of adjusted things a bit. We even had like a basketball tournament that was out of town, and so we don't do school work on the days when we're out of town for tournaments and things like that. So it just kind of made kind of our flow change up a little bit, where we're usually used to like spreading certain things out over the 5-day week. So we had some weeks where we would skip certain subjects because it just didn't, I didn't want to do like a weird interruption in that. But quarter 3 should run pretty smoothly for us. We don't anticipate taking any major breaks. We do have an in-town tournament that will require us to take a Friday off, and then near the end of February we take 3 days off, 1 week, to go and play in a regional basketball tournament. So that's all out of town, and it's kind of like an all-day thing, and we go down to Indianapolis for that, and we'll in between games we'll just do fun stuff around town. So that's kind of the plan for quarter 3. We don't plan on having like a long spring break in there or anything like that. If you have watched any of my previous videos, both my kids are competitive golfers. And so our goal is to try to get our 180 days in that the state requires, and to finish our curriculum as early in May as we can, so that way they can have full days outside when the weather gets nice, and be able to work on their golf, and be able to compete in tournaments and things like that. And as someone who is kind of like a hardcore gardener, that also gives me the opportunity to get outside and start getting to work on those things. So let's talk about what worked well in quarter 2. So I had talked about some changes we were going to make with some of our group work. So we do art history, Bible study together, German together, and then like a read out loud. And we work on those, 5 days a week. So art history, we had switched over to where we were reading out loud sections of a chapter together and looking at the images all at the same time, and working on the discussion questions all at the same time. And it did slow us down compared to like the speed we were working at before, which I kind of anticipated. When you're reading stuff out loud, it just takes some time, especially when it's art history type stuff. But we have been learning the material so much better this way, like so much better. We got into Roman architecture, which, and Roman art in general, which really has like a lot of details to it. There's a lot of new terms to learn. We were memorizing what different types of columns were in different art pieces, and kind of how the setup of the cities worked and things like that. And I just find that this method is so much better. So, if we learned anything from it, it's that it's okay to take things slower than you wanted to, if it means you're getting a better if you're learning the material better. And that is, again, one of the beauties of homeschooling, is that we can slow things down to a pace that works well for us and for our students, so that way they can really just absorb that material. So we are definitely going to continue doing that. So in our Bible study, I had mentioned in the last video that we were just jumping into Emotions of the Heart from Daily Grace Co. We finished that study, and it was a really wonderful study to do with teenagers. Kids at that age, they feel emotions so strongly, and hormones are raging. And it was a really nice study as far as looking at like how to respond to the emotions. It's not telling them that their emotions are bad. It was telling them, how do we control our responses to those emotions, so that way, it's not something that's happening in a sinful manner, if that makes sense. So that was really, really good to do. Then we jumped into Hope Has Come, which was our Advent study. We did that over the 4 weeks prior to Christmas. We even finished it up, right up until Christmas Eve, even though we were technically on break. But it jumped into the 4 candles that we set out for Advent. So the hope, joy, peace, and love candle. And it looked at how prophecy in the Old Testament had pointed to Christ as a fulfillment of hope or love or joy or peace. And then there was gospel readings on what he had done in his time here on earth to fulfill those. And then it looked ahead to Revelations and talking about how he was going to be bringing about eternal hope and eternal peace and eternal joy and all of this. And it was just a really great study. Again, I've loved their Advent studies. We've done them a couple of times, and it was a beautiful, beautiful study. So if you are looking for an Advent program next season or next year for your older students, I would really recommend looking at the programs that they put out. They usually will have the previous year's program available in limited quantities, and then they'll have their new one that will come out each year. So really good. And then going into quarter 3, we'll be jumping into 2 new programs. So the one we're going to start with is called Arise. This is a study of Nehemiah. So we study that entire Bible chapter. It's fairly short. I think this book of the Bible only has like 13 chapters. It's a fairly short one, but we're going to be diving into this one. I had chosen this one because it was just a book of the Bible that I wasn't super familiar with. Like, I know the basics of it, but I had never really deep dived into it. And so I thought we could all enjoy doing that. And then after that one, because that one will take us a couple of weeks, we are going to do a study on the Sermon on the Mount. And glare. Let's see if we can get it to focus. There we go, Sermon on the Mount. So we will be looking at that. It'll break down all of the different things that Jesus talked about during that sermon, and then each day we'll be studying like one portion of those more in depth. Read out loud wise, we are almost done with Flowers for Algernon. We've got about a week, I think, to finish that after the Christmas break. And then we are going to do Shores Beyond Shores. And there we go. So this is a Holocaust story. It's a true story of a survivor of the concentration camps. I do have a study book that goes along with it, because we had purchased this at the Great Homeschooling Convention, and it has a lot of little add-on materials for us to use in documents and things like that. So we're going to kind of use that along with the read out loud, just to kind of like supplement it as we're reading. I think that will be really helpful, because as opposed to a lot of the other books we've done as read out louds, which have been fictional books. I mean, we did read the book about the Arctic crew, but this, this is a fairly recent true story. And both of my kids are rather familiar with the Holocaust and World War II. We've studied it over time in our history courses. But I think firsthand accounts are definitely just something that, hits you a little bit harder. So I think it'll bring about some good discussion with both of my high schoolers. So now on to core courses. In quarter 2, I made some efforts to try to make the load for my oldest a little bit easier. She was writing essays for her literature course. She was writing them for her writing course. She was getting assigned them in history. We did make the switch that I mentioned in my Q1 video, where instead of having her have to do the 5-paragraph essays for her history class, she just does the paragraph, and then she writes as assigned for her English course, her literature course, and for her writing course. And she said that was much better. Again, I don't think it was so much like the amount of writing for the history one. It was the fact that the writing prompts that they gave required a lot of outside research to do to be able to put those together. And it was assigned that like every other week. So it was too much for her. So we did that, and we also kind of slowed down the pace on the literature course. And I think that also has helped as well. Just, giving her a little more time to get those done. In quarter 3, she'll have 2 novels that are incorporated into the class. So she'll have questions in her student workbook from her Apologia literature that she'll fill out and answer. And then there is information in the textbook, but the books themselves, we'll be reading the regular books. So she will be starting The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn in just a couple of weeks. And, it's a fairly quick read. If you've ever read Huckleberry Finn, this goes fast. And then not long after that, she does The Great Gatsby. And I'm not sure how she'll like it. I think The Great Gatsby is one of those books you either love it or hate it. I'll be real honest, I was never a huge fan. I know there's so many people out there who are like huge Gatsby fans. I wasn't one of them, but it is a great example of more modern American literature. So, important for her to read those. So she will do both of these as a part of her study here. So my son in quarter 2 had done two of the 6 units from his BJU literature program and a novel study on The Hiding Place. We finished 2 more, and then in December he started The Hobbit. So we do 2 units from our BJU literature, and then we kind of switch gears. We do a novel study, and then we jump back to it. So in December he started The Hobbit. We used the Memoria Press program as far as having like a teacher guide and a student guide, and I think he has enjoyed The Hobbit more than he anticipated he would. I think the length of the book intimidated him initially because Tolkien is a wordy writer, and it can take a while to kind of get through his books. But I do like how Memoria Press really broke it down. I mean, they read a chapter and then they have questions on that chapter, and then they do quizzes. They have optional quizzes, including maps, which I think is a great skill to include into there, every 4 chapters. So you're getting quizzed on small portions at a time. And then he did kind of like what was called like a midterm test that was on the first half of the book. And so he is getting near the end of it. He's got a little bit to finish up after Christmas break, but we will wrap that up fairly quickly. He'll, take kind of the end test on it, and then we'll do just a short paper on a topic from The Hobbit. So that has just been a huge win. And I'm hoping maybe the fact that he's actually enjoyed the book might encourage him to pick up the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is over there on our homeschool bookshelf. So we'll see if he gets in the mood to read those as well. And maybe that'll be a future novel study if he decides that's something he'd like us to jump into. So some other big changes for my son. He finished up in quarter 2 his Intro to Psychology course, which he took from Seven Sisters Homeschool. This was a very basic psychology introductory course. And it just highlights some of like the key things for different psychology topics. I think he enjoyed it. He moved through it, at a pretty steady pace. It was a 16-week program, so he got done a little bit before Christmas. The enrichment activities are really great to work in because there are movies to watch. There's, people observations and then writing about those. There were some things where he had to kind of he had to read the 5 love languages of teenagers, and then he had to write a paragraph on what was his love language, and then he had to write about what's the love language of your sibling, and how can you improve your sibling relationship by knowing what each other's love language is. So I thought that was kind of interesting because, my kids are so close in age, they either get along great or it's World War III. It's one or the other. So I thought that was kind of neat because it gets you thinking about other people and that relationship and how you can improve the relationship. And so I thought that was a really cool one for him to do. Anyways, in quarter 3, we switch gears. He's going to be taking a course from Dave Ramsey, and this is one my daughter did last year. We call it on the transcript College and Career Readiness. It's really 2 shorter courses that we purchased as a bundle, and it's not where there's like, do this lesson today, do this lesson the next day, and things like that. what we do is we kind of time it out. So, 3 days a week, we say set a 20-minute timer, work on the course until the timer goes off. And then wherever you stop, the next day, pick up from there and then keep going. So that's what we do for that course. And if he continues on that pace, he'll finish it probably by the end of April, which is about what my daughter did last year. The two different courses that make this up, the first one talks about college planning, specifically like how you can, go to college without incurring a ton of debt, which, we've heard about in the news a whole bunch, people graduating with, tens of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. So how can you make college affordable? What are some strategies for doing that? And then the career readiness part encompasses a lot of different things. So there's everything from how to write a resume to how to do an interview, how to do cover letters, and then how to kind of determine what kind of career you might be interested in. So a little bit of kind of self-reflection on what things you enjoy and are interested in doing and kind of determining a career path. So we have really enjoyed the Dave Ramsey courses. In fact, I'm going to have a video coming out in January about how we have utilized those programs to do personal finance electives for both of my kids. So my daughter really enjoyed the courses last year, and so I think my son is looking forward to that, and we'll get that probably wrapped up fairly early in the spring for him. And I couldn't go without mentioning our Guest Hollow curriculums because, well, you guys know me, I'm just a huge fan of their programs. I actually had a really cool opportunity to help do like some curriculum review for them, where I was, checking like links, making sure that they were still good, and, previewing videos and things like that. And I got a sneak peek at their new government, econ, and personal finance course that is going to be releasing this winter. Guys, I'm so excited about this course. I'm so excited. I'm buying it like the minute it's available. And in fact, I've kind of been in talks with them about doing like a review video on it, because I'm already shopping for the books for it. I know for sure we're going to do it next year. And I'm just really jazzed that they are putting this program out there. So super excited. We are doing 2 programs from them this year. My son is doing a cultural geography course, and quarter 2 had him looking at a lot of European countries. So we were studying everything from the UK to France and Italy and Spain, and like all of those countries. He made so many amazing recipes. And there were a lot of countries that even I was not super familiar with that we were looking at as well. And I think that was just really great. We had a book that we read, and hold on, I'll grab it here to show you. Yeah, so he read North, which talks about like Scandinavian culture, so like Sweden and Denmark and Norway and things like that. This was a really interesting book because it wasn't, it wasn't like honed in on any one topic. It really kind of jumped through to everything from like dress to home style to, their philosophies to, grocery shopping. And I mean, it was just everything. And it was just a fun little book to read. But we really enjoyed looking at the European countries. And going into quarter 3, he starts with Russia, and then he does the Middle East, South Asia, China, and Japan. So I anticipate this to be a lot of fun. He's like a lot of teenagers, he's very into like anime and all things coming out of Japan. So I think when we get to the Japan unit, he will be pretty stoked to be working on that. And I am looking ahead at this point at the activities and recipes and even some of the crafts for those countries. He's not usually really big on craft projects, but there are some really good ones recommended in the next couple of weeks. And so I do want to try to incorporate those, at least 1 or 2, to have him include those in his program. So we're really excited for quarter 3 on this. I have decided after talking with him that we are going to use their curriculum for him for world history next year. So they have a program called Whirlwind World History, and I am planning to purchase that. They have a huge winter sale coming up in the next couple of weeks. So if you hop over to guesthollow.com or on their Facebook page, just keep an eye because they'll announce it. The sale runs for just a few weeks, and it's the best sale of the year. And you can get the curriculums. And I do encourage you, if you are considering them, to go ahead and get them now, because it gives you plenty of time to source out the books and things like that. I can kind of watch for book sales and, get things, whether that's from Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and just kind of build my library a little bit at a time. So just kind of keep an eye on that. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that they were going to have that sale coming up soon. My daughter is doing the botany course from them, and she continues to love it. It's all things plants. And in quarter 3, our plan is to really start to pull all of this knowledge that she has had, that she's been learning, and putting it into practice. Because here in Indiana, as we kind of get into February, if you do a lot of gardening, whether that's vegetable garden or flower gardening, we're looking at getting things like seed starts going and seed trays, and really kind of mapping out how our gardens are going to be laid out and things like that. So I'm going to be having her assist with all of the seed starting this year and with the garden planning. So we have a vegetable garden, we have a vine garden, and then we have a cut flower garden. So the vine garden would be things like our melons and squashes and pumpkins and things like that. And the vegetable garden, well, it's vegetable and fruit. So strawberries, we have blueberry plants, we do like tomatoes, peppers, onions, and things like that. So as far as laying out, how much square footage we want of each type of vegetable or fruit to be able to produce food for our family, I'm going to have her actually helping with that. What things do we want to order for the cut flower garden? I will usually put in like dahlia orders and things, and seed orders this time of year. So she has been studying so many of these plants, and she's got all of these great resources. So we're gonna really incorporate her into helping to determine what we're gonna do there. Even if it's not quite warm enough at the end of quarter 3 for us to actually be outdoor planting, we need to have the planting stages done at this point, and we need to have the seed starts going so that way they're ready to plant after we hit our last potential frost date. So it's really cool when, one, it's a topic your students are already really interested in, but also when you can then take what they're learning and put it into practice right away in your own home. And, gardening and botany is one of those things where you do get a lot of, yes, there are some things that take a while for you to, really see results from. You plant things and they're small, and it might take a few seasons for them to be impressive. But things like vegetable and cut flower gardening, you're gonna start to see the effects of what you're doing within a matter of weeks. And I just think that, that's a great way to just encourage them to, to continue pursuing those things and being interested in those things. So really excited for that for quarter 3. And I thought I would just end things up by talking about the 2 things that just kind of didn't work as well for us this last quarter. I had ordered, and I talked about this in another video, so I ordered a campfire curriculum program for Thanksgiving. I thought, let's incorporate something that's kind of lighthearted, but still, educational, to include in our fall study around the Thanksgiving time. And I got a couple comments from people who told me that there's 2 different versions of a Thanksgiving program they put out, and one is a bit more like in-depth, definitely geared more towards older students. We had gotten one that was about traditions, which had options in there for younger students and for older. And I'm just gonna tell you that, we did it, but it wasn't my kid's favorite thing in the world. And I think it's just because it was really written to have multiple age groups. So, having your younger students maybe with some of your older students, but since both of my students are older, it just wasn't something that really resonated well with them. And, I couldn't tell you if the other version, the other program they had was better for older students or not. I didn't go back out and buy it, but I heard from some other people that if you're looking for one that's got a little more meat and potatoes to it, to go that route. That's not to say that all their curriculum is bad. I actually have been interested in looking at some of their curriculum for possible electives for high schoolers. So it was just, that particular Thanksgiving one was kind of a fail for us. We did it. It just wasn't 5 stars in my kids' books or anything like that. The other thing was doing our semester projects. For my son did a semester project for cultural geography, and my daughter did one for botany. We included those because there's no quizzes or tests with the guest hollow curriculums. There's we do a daily narration journal, and they have projects that they do that we give them a grade for, and workbooks and things like that. But I wanted a bigger semester project. Now, it's not that the semester project was the fail. My daughter chose, I gave them two options. They could either do a PowerPoint presentation with a 10-minute speech, or they could do a 5-page research paper, like deep diving into a topic of their choice that they had studied that semester. My daughter chose the paper, which didn't surprise me because she hates speeches. My son chose the PowerPoint and the speech. It wasn't that the project was the issue. I think it's how I chose to schedule it. I had them start working on those projects over Thanksgiving week. So rather than starting a new week of the Guest Hollow curriculum, I gave them that whole week to start determining their topic and pulling notes together and, you know, putting things in place. And then they had the week before Christmas break to tweak it and actually turn it in. My expectation that I told them was that between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they would kind of hold themselves accountable to getting things done in little bits and pieces. But our second semester schedule was so cuckoo with the vacation and the tournament dates and the holidays and stuff. I think that didn't work out quite right. I think they found that they really just didn't have the, you know, they weren't quite sure how they should break their time down to be able to work on that project in bits and pieces. So what I'm gonna do is I am getting online, and I'm pulling from some of my resources I have as far as kind of guides on how to organize and plan out a big project, how you kind of break it down into steps. And I'm gonna have them look at the schedule for their course, for their botany and their cultural geography courses, look ahead at what they're going to be studying over the next 2 quarters and pick a topic now, like pick it at the start of Q3. And then I'm going to give them those resources like, hey, here we go. We're in week 1. We've got 18 weeks to get this project done. What should we be doing week 1? And then what should we be doing week 2? And just kind of, I don't know, baby step through it, and that might help them with the time management a little bit better. And I think it was partly me just assuming that they could, you know, that they knew more intuitively on how to put together a big project like that. And, you know, and in reality, it's just something that I need to teach at a little bit of a slower pace. It's going to be a good skill for them to learn because they'll definitely need it in like college when, you know, there's nobody telling you how to break down a big assignment. It's just, here's the assignment and when it's due, and then you have to plan ahead yourself. So I'm going to see if I can kind of break it down and like baby step it over the 18 weeks and help them out in that regard. I think they'll feel better about it. And I think they'll learn more about that whole planning process. So we will do another big semester project that'll be due at the end of quarter 4 for each of those 2 courses. And it's a chunk of their grade because, you know, it is meant to be a more in-depth assignment. But we're just going to approach it a little bit differently. So that was kind of a mom fail there, just how I planned out the timing on that. So I hope that this will work much better. And as I kind of find those resources on, you know, how I'm going to break it down over the 18 weeks or what I'm going to be giving them, I will be sure to share on future videos. All right, guys, that wraps up this quarter 2 update and look ahead to quarter 3. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoy these kind of videos, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe down below to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you can find out when I post new homeschooling and mom life content. Have a great one, everybody. See you in the next video.